Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are so glad to have you all here today, and we're really excited for this presentation. Before we get started with anything, some quick introductions. My name's Kayla. I'm here representing the Acelab team. We have Alex here from HOVR. He's going to be walking us through our presentation. So before I pass it over to him, I want to go through some quick housekeeping items. And first, I want to start by just sharing my screen here and taking you over to Acelab. So, in just a moment, you should be able to see my screen. If you're not familiar with Acelab, a really great place to start when you're looking to do any kind of research is the search bar at the top of the screen. So, in this case, you can see here you can start by just doing a general product search. You can use our new AI search. You can also, in this case, search for a specific manufacturer or search through resources. So, here we are on HOVR's brand page. So you'll see here we've got some great information. We've got Alex's contact information right here, front and center, some photos as well as their products here for you to click into and explore more on. So you could actually click into either one of these pages to learn more. You can also click here and save it to your Acelab firm library. That way you and your team have access to these products for future reference. So definitely check this out if you have a moment. We've also got some awesome testimonies here as well as some photos for you to explore. So I'll drop a link in the chat here for you to check this out. A couple other things to make note of for today's presentation. This is an AIA-approved presentation, so you will get credit for attending. We already collected your AIA numbers upon registration, but if you're worried we did not get your number, I will be putting a form in the chat. Fill that out to make sure that we have your number and that you get credit for the session today. We will also be doing Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if at any point you have a question, you can see that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Click that, drop your questions there, and then we will read them out loud to be answered live towards the end. You will also see a webinar poll pop up on your screen during the presentation. About 3/4 of the way through, you're going to see that come up there. It is an optional poll. So if you're not interested in getting any kind of follow-up information from Alex and his team, you can just click the X, it'll go away. However, if you would like to get any kind of follow-up information, samples, product literature, anything like that, fill out the poll and we will connect you with Alex directly through an Acelab conversation. And then that's a great opportunity to continue the conversation, ask more questions, talk about a specific project that you may have. So yeah, just definitely keep an eye out for that poll when it pops up and we'll connect you afterwards. And then lastly, there will also be a post-webinar survey. So we really appreciate any feedback that you have for us. So feel free to leave anything like that there at the very end. So with that being said, Alex, I'll go ahead and pass over to you to get us started.
So, hi everyone, welcome. As Kayla said, I'm Alex from HOVR Solutions, and yeah, welcome to the webinar. Today we're going to talk about HOVR's floating shelf brackets and advanced floating shelf hardware systems, and just go through a couple things on brackets and old traditional brackets versus modern brackets and things like that. So, this is kind of where we're going to be at today. Starting off, we're just going to look at some structural deficiencies in traditional hardware and show where some of those weight distributions may fail there. Then going on to load capacity and material specifications of HOVR and a couple other things there. Then we're going to look at advantages of standardized and novel hardware. What some of the advantages of HOVR are and how best to use, floating shelf brackets and where might be a good time to use different types of brackets. And then we'll spend some time looking at modern design applications as well. And then finally, we'll just do some questions at the end. So just a quick overview of HOVR, what we do. We sell, market, and design floating shelf brackets. We're heavily, into design R&D. And it says there, we right now have our floating shelf brackets, two versions of that, but we're coming out with a kitchen cabinet bracket soon as well. So there might be interest there for, kitchens and things like that as well. And so that's coming soon. Again, yeah, we have patents on all our products, and we market, sell, and do a lot of service as well. Make sure we have standardized hardware, standardized installation, and all that. Um, we're online focused, making easy purchasing, free shipping, access to knowledge, um, and yeah, so that's pretty much what we do there. Um, moving on, just taking a look at some traditional hardware deficiencies. This is in our past webinars as well, so we're just going to go through these quickly and just talk about some of the main points here. But just the main points here are design limitations. They're often weak and unreliable and unsafe. Usually they have complicated or inefficient installs, lacking some versatility and adjustability, which we'll get into what that means as well. Um, wall adjustments are usually necessary for higher loads because of how these brackets are made and sort of the forces that are applied on them, which we'll also take a look at a little bit more later on. Generally, these brackets have low weight ratings, again, because of some of the other things we've mentioned as well. And usually they're non-standardized hardware and installation. Um, you know, um, like for example, the wall adjustments here, right? If you take a look at the prong system or the L bracket there on the right side, you can see basically the bottom right picture there. That one is a stud mounted bracket, so you would have to go behind the drywall, in order to do that. But we'll get into that. First is, weak, unreliable, unsafe, and this mostly comes from weight distribution inefficiencies. You can see there on the left, for example, that's a two-prong system, and all the weight really is being distributed on those 2 points, right? On those two poles. And that kind of creates these specific points of failure and leads to a low weight rating, low load capacities. Um, and usually weak and flimsy or low rigidity locking mechanisms as well. And oftentimes they won't even have locking mechanisms. But just to show sort of that weight distribution inefficiency, I did put a two-prong up behind me there. And might be a bit small, but you can see, basically all the weight is on these two prongs. And what happens is you can just push that right down, right? And it just bends at those points. And that's kind of what leads to a low load capacity overall. Then moving on to inefficient installation on the shelf install side. Usually you have to drill deep, large, and straight holes, and then also additionally router. You can kind of see for example, the picture on the left there, you've got the plate on the back and the rods. So first you have to drill deep holes to get those rods in place properly. They need to be straight. If they're not, you may as well go and redo your shelf, right? But you still have to router out that back plate in order to have it flush against the wall, right? So really you need to do both processes here with most bracket systems. Um, Lining up the set screw holes can be difficult from the middle of the shelf, but also you generally need to line these brackets up with your studs in order to get some load capacity out of it. And if you're doing something like the right side there, just those prongs and that's it, wherever you want to put them is fine. But if you're, sending the shelf to someone or something, right, you have to line up those prongs with the studs, but then you also need to line up those prongs with your shelf. So you need to make sure all that is lined up before and do your calculations before you actually are putting that shelf up or installing it onto the wall. And that creates kind of a couple different problems and a lot of work beforehand, which makes things more complicated as well and inefficient. Again, epoxy is usually required again with these locking mechanisms that are generally quite flimsy. You'll see very little rigidity on these types of shelving. And basically, that means oftentimes epoxy is required to give it that extra rigidity, which also kind of leads to a permanent install there as well. On the wall install side, wall adjustments or renovation on the wall is often required for higher loads. It's kind of what I was mentioning earlier with those stud mounted brackets, or even an L bracket. If you want it to be a hidden hardware, it needs to go behind the drywall, right? Which can be tedious and kind of lead to sort of inefficiencies there. Um, as well, you don't have any left to right adjustability really. Wherever you place it, that's where it is. bottom right there, for example, you put that in a spot, you can't move it slightly left to right if you want to adjust it at all. Um, again, usually they lead to sagging or failing shelves, and somebody has to come back, and that's obviously very inefficient. And then lacking installation information and standardized hardware. All these kind of have different hardware. They're not, sometimes often are not very common, and kind of leads to other issues there as well. Versatility of bracket systems, again, there's design limitations for certain things. Of course, you've got a difference between hidden floating shelf brackets and then regular floating shelf brackets, right? But if you want a hidden solution, often you have to sacrifice strength. Um, and for something like those bottom, the prong systems there, you do require multiple lengths of stock, right? You can't just have one piece and then cut it to wherever you want for your shelf. If you cut, for example, that two prong in half, it basically becomes unusable, right? And again, we already went through the non-standardized hardware and stuff. So moving on to load capacities and material specifications, um, basically looking at mostly the hover bracket here. But again, we've got our original classic line hover bracket system. This one has a 300-pound load capacity in 2 studs and 4 screws. So that's a nice thing about this bracket is it does have 2 screws per stud, which gives you a lot more rigidity and less sort of bending moment forces applied there. All our brackets are patented. This one's an 1.5 inch by 7/8 inch aluminum profile. So you do kind of want to make sure your shelf is at least sort of 1 and 6/8 inches thick to kind of accommodate the hidden bracket there. You can do it unhidden as well, but anyways, yeah. So yeah, I mean that's really the classic bracket there, and we do include all the hardware, so you can see sort of in the middle bottom there. That's all the hardware that's included. And we do include an installation guide as well. So everything's standardized and included in the bracket and sort of makes sense. But that being said, you can use pretty much ordinary hardware with the brackets as well, if you would want to do that instead. Um, and yeah, so that's the classic bracket. Maybe we'll do a quick video here as well, just demonstrating, sort of the steps required here. So first you make the channel there for your bracket, put that in, tighten that up. And these are the set screws. They're important to keep kind of the whole system locked together. Um, Provides extra rigidity, extra load capacity, and mostly and most importantly is for safety as well. Then preparing the male bracket here, you just, again, 2 screws per stud. Slight tilt, combine them. Knock the top back to make sure it's in properly. And you just put the set screws in, tighten them up, and you're all done. And that's really as easy as it is there. So yeah, I mean, really simple to do. And sorry, going back to the classic here. Again, that's 300 pounds in 2 wood studs at 8 inches off the wall when weight is distributed evenly, and that's how we calculate the load capacities on all our bracket systems. Yeah, moving on to the slimline, works really similar, but this one is just 2 studs, 2 screws. We had to make it thinner. This one we made specifically, catering to our customers' problems. They wanted a thinner shelf, so we made it. We've got a little bit different hardware here using GRK screws, providing a little bit extra strength instead of having 2 screws. We've just got some heavier duty screws there to accommodate that. We have a video, but again, it works really the same way with the set screws, 2-piece bracket system, and we'll do a live demo later anyways as well, right? So then now we've got the steel bracket as well. This is kind of are really heavy duty bracket for mantles, vanities, floating benches, all that kind of stuff. Can hold up to 3,000 pounds. You will have to obviously make adjustments in the back of your wall for this one. But making adjustments in the back of your wall to hang something like this is always going to be necessary. And it is made to fit lag bolts and things like that in order to you know, really get what you need out of this, and provide that really strong load capacity. It is made to order, and we do kind of spec out and make and provide all the holes pre-drilled as well on these. So they are a little bit more of a process to get going, but definitely worthwhile if you're looking for something heavy to hang up. Moving on now, we're going into advantages here of you know, sort of newer bracket systems, specifically the HOVR bracket system here. Um, so strength and safety are obviously the two most important there. Um, High load capacity and the set screw design providing that safety. Weight distribution advantages, which we'll get into as well. Easy installation, both on the shelf and wall side, and not only easy installation, but also can be installed pretty much anywhere. Really, the efficiency of the bracket being aluminum and uniform, you can cut it to any length. We talked earlier about sort of those stocking requirements. In this case, um, you really only need to stock one size of bracket, and you can cut it wherever you want because it is aluminum and uniform, and use that length for the project, making it super easy to just stock one size. The versatility and adjustability of it as well. We're going to go through some use cases and show off, what sort of things you can do there, which kind of goes into the last portion of the presentation there. And Yeah, we strive on having premium quality hardware and premium quality brackets, and hardware that goes with that. Um, as well as really good customer service and information, website knowledge base. We have all standardized hardware, standardized installation for everything. And it really is that easy that it can be really put up by anyone, right? Um, but starting off with strength, safety, and longevity here, again, the high load capacity compared to other systems because of that weight distribution across the entire length of the bracket. There's no specific failure point like you saw with the two prong behind me, right? You've got those 2 points of failure, but with something like the HOVR bracket style of bracket, you uh, basically distribute that weight evenly across the entire back of the bracket there and across the entire length of the shelf, meaning there's no specific points of failure. Leads to really good weight distribution efficiencies and overall load capacity increases. Um, and then the strong and safe set screw design as well at the bottom, right? You can kind of see those pictures there at the bottom. Basically, the set screw locks those two brackets together, ensuring you've got, a perfect lock, but also to ensure that those can't be hit up anymore or knocked off the wall, for safety reasons, right? It's nice to have that mechanical locking mechanism as well instead of just being glued. And the other nice thing about that is, the longevity, but also the lack of a permanent install. Like, it doesn't need to be a permanent install. You can, because it's a mechanical sort of feature there, you can unscrew it, take it off the wall, put it wherever you want with very minimal wall damage as well. Um, and yeah, and with that, I just kind of wanted to go through a little bit of the acting forces on the HOVR bracket. This one is the slim HOVR bracket, which makes things a little bit easier because it's only one screw per stud instead of two, right? But essentially, you've got, two different kind of forces acting here. You've got the bending moment there, which, kind of is, you can see A there, the withdrawal pullout force, and then the compression force coming in at the bottom, and also at where the screw is, the preload force there. And that kind of creates that bending moment. But what's nice about the HOVR bracket is there's also that wedge, right? Now the wedge on the classic bracket is a little more pronounced and will provide even more benefit here, sort of like a French cleat style, right? And what that does is, the HOVR bracket is kind of a combination of both, right? You get some bending moment and some of that wedge effect too. And basically what that does is that wedge will introduce an additional vertical force for cleat shear, which kind of reduces that withdrawal or pull-out force, kind of increasing those weight efficiencies and making sure that the force is kind of evenly distributed between the bending moment and also that wedge there, sort of adding to the cleat outward thrust there, which is kind of that arrow going straight out, but also adds to the vertical force and then decreases that A force, the withdrawal or pull out force, right? Which is creating tension there. Um, and really what I just want to show with this is how this sort of combination, kind of caters itself to better weight distribution efficiencies and better sort of force dispersion, let's say. But um, it it also what I wanted to mention here is that because of that compression force and the withdrawal force, um, the more preload force you have, right? The stronger your male bracket is to the wall, the more rigidity your entire system is going to have, right? So that's something really that you can adjust there as well. And as you kind of increase, the preload force there, the compression of that male bracket, you will see a more rigid system or a system that doesn't wiggle as much, right? Um, and what is required there is that a higher preload force may make it more difficult to get that shelf to sit in properly straight on the brackets. But it once you do have it in, it provides a lot more rigidity, right? So I always tell, people who are doing the install to just really just tighten that male bracket to the wall as much as you can. See if you can get your shelf on. Even maybe take a rubber mallet and a hammer at the back of the shelf, and pound that in so it does sit in. Because once it sits in, if you do have more of that preload force and that compression there, your whole system is just going to be way stronger. Now, obviously, there is a certain eventual point of failure on the screws if there's too much force, but that's kind of why for the slim line, we use the GRK hardware, which has high thresholds for that preload force, that compression, and also has high shear force or shear resistance really from that vertical force. And and yeah, I mean the classic has four screws, so it's a little bit different there, but and the dispersion's a little better across four screws, but that's kind of generally how it works. The bending moment there, that's kind of the two-prong systems and stuff are all the bending moment, whereas a French cleat would be pretty much all, that the cleat shear and dispersion of those through the wedge, the forces through the wedge. And this is kind of a combination of both, right? But really the main part of this is that I just kind of wanted to explain that, which is pretty intuitive, really, if you think about it, right? The tighter, you've got that male bracket, the higher rigidity, but the harder it is going to be to engage those brackets. But yeah, so just a little bit of information there on how the system works, and sort of the forces that are applied there. Moving on to sort of the easy installation part, and we did cover this a little bit already, but the shelf install, only routering is required earlier. I mentioned how you have to drill straight holes and also router. And for a prong system, for example, for us, only routering is required, although it is a deeper router, right? It's easy to secure the female bracket to the shelf. Essentially, if you've got backing, you can, basically install the bracket into any shelf type. It can be wood, MDF, particle board, metal, concrete, really anything as long as it has backing to attach that bracket to. You can see in the bottom left picture there, that's a corner folded MDF shelf with a face side strip of MDF acting as the backing there, which is possible because the face side has enough those screws won't rip out there. But you do need something that is sufficient. Like the side of an MDF board is not going to have enough to grab those screws and they would rip out. So you do need some sort of backing there. But again, plywood or anything like that would work fine there as well. And yeah, I mean you've got a lot of extra room now as well. You don't have prongs in your way to kind of use the rest of the shelf. Again, you can do simple wiring as well through the back of the bracket. Um, And then on the wall side, basically, again, it's very easy to use on pretty much any surface, goes directly on top of any surface. You can go on top of drywall, on top of concrete, brick, tile. Tile is a really big one because a lot of people do floating shelves in their kitchens. So, they basically like just put them directly on top of the tile, which, is definitely possible. You've got a flat back on both the brackets to do that with. You can also install it into pretty much any material as well. You can go into, wood or metal studs, drywall only with drywall screws because you do have that good weight distribution. Um, you can go into concrete, brick, right? All these things. You know, if you're going into tile, you'll be hitting studs behind it, right? But it can sit on top of the tile. Um, and yeah, additionally, we've got that adjustability mechanic left to right. You can kind of see, you know, you you can slide the bracket left and right a little bit, especially if you leave that male bracket a little bit shorter. So if you want to make minor adjustments on the wall, that's possible. It's also really useful if you're doing corner shelves or something like that. Um, and the set screw design, again, it ensures that it's a proper connection level from the wall, and also ensures that your two brackets are perfectly engaged with each other. And then they lock as well. So there's a couple, added benefits there. But a big one as well is, kind of once it's on the wall, making sure that it's sitting properly. And once it's sitting properly, it should be just straight off the wall. And you're good to go. But if it is required, you do have a slight angle adjustment you can make as well on the brackets, just by either shimming it or putting a screw behind or something like that. And it really is, especially the wall install side, it really is very simple to do, and most end users can install them themselves. We see, a lot of companies that we work with make shelving and they just sell it online. They should sell it directly to the consumer and they install it themselves, right? Um, so that's another big one, and just a couple pictures there as well. This I just wanted to, demonstrate how this one is these shelves here are directly on in brick. And it kind of shows how they can go on top of tile and also into, brick walls or concrete or whatever you want, right? Um, you just need the appropriate hardware, obviously, for that. Which, again, with our standardized installation and all this, we do sort of make note of that on our website on what hardware to use, depending on what material you're going into and all of that. Moving on to efficiency and versatility. Um, we did go through a little bit of this as well already, but basically, you can use the bracket as at a 3-to-2 ratio of wood to bracket, meaning basically for a 3-foot shelf, you can use a 2-foot bracket in that, and you'll still get that 300-pound load capacity as long as you're hitting two wood studs. And for the slim, obviously, again, it's 150-pound load capacity. You can sacrifice strength for cost effectiveness here and use a more extreme ratio. You can go 50%, or even more extreme. If you did want to sacrifice some of that load capacity, like usually, a 2-foot bracket you can do with a 4-foot shelf without sacrificing much load capacity at all, really. I mean, you can really even take sometimes small pieces, right? If depending on, what the project is for and the needs there. Um, Again, we went through the aluminum and uniform aspect of the bracket. It's easy to cut because it is aluminum and you can cut it at any size you need. So what most, of our shelf builders or millware or like mills will do is they'll just buy the 8-foot bracket, which is our longest length, and then just cut them to size wherever they need it for that project, right? Um, and again, it goes back into those stocking advantages that I talked about earlier as well. Um, and yeah, we already went through that. And again, there's many shelf designs that weren't previously possible with other hardware because, it gets in the way. With hover, the brackets really don't get in the way of anything because they're just right against the wall there. Easily movable with minimal damage to the wall. We kind of discussed this already. It's not permanent and it really there's not much damage to the wall because the male brackets are flat. They can just be put on there. Many different install options. Again, we kind of discussed this already. You can go into any material and, different ways to kind of do that. Um, and yeah, no, there really is very little sacrifice of strength or really no sacrifice and almost better strength. and safety for ease of use, right? It's easy to use and really anyone can put it up, but there's no sacrifice to strength or safety for that. Now, basically, I'm just going to stop sharing here and do a live install, um, just to show kind of how how easy it is. So we're going to do a classic install here. So this is the shelf we're putting up. As you can see, we're kind of sticking to that two-thirds ratio here. Um, we've got the set screws here at the bottom, just two of them. And yeah, that's what we'll be putting up. This is a hollow shelf. You know, again, the backing is just you know, a wood strip, and this is basically a box, and then they put um, some um, laminate on top. So this is our classic bracket. So it's 4 screws per stud, or it's 2 screws per stud, 4 screws in total. I've already re-drilled the holes on this bracket. Basically, you want to drill these holes on those two little die lines, which you can't really see on the camera, but there's essentially one die line at the top, one die line at the bottom, and you want to screw or drill your hole directly on that die line, which is going to be the perfect spot for it for the backside, which is all flat. Want to make sure it's level. I don't have the level here, but you know, we're just doing a test here, so there you go, 4 screws, and got that piece there. And take your shelf, pop it up, and see we're kind of angled up a little bit, right? Because it's not fully engaged. Then once we tap it, you can see we're all level up, and you can slide it left to right still a little bit. And you've got kind of that wherever, because we had a decent gap on the left and right where there was no bracket, right? But still hollow. So you do have that amount of room to shift. But of course, you still want to make sure that your set screws are connecting to both the brackets to ensure that it's locking properly. Then you just take your hex key, tighten these up. And you might know that the shelf fully sits into place a little bit extra here now. And you get that perfect 90 right off the wall as well. And you really want these to be as tight as possible. And then you're basically good. And you can see, you know, because I really tightened that male bracket to the wall, the female bracket that's sort of has that wedge here is pushing into the wall, right? And that pushing into the wall makes this whole thing sturdier. So the tighter I make this male bracket, the more sturdier this is going to be. But this one's already, you know, extremely sturdy here and rigid, which is how you want it. Um, and we've got a couple weights to put on as well. These go past, right? So the center load, this is an 8-inch shelf. So 300 pounds can be put on this and two wood studs, but the center load is further out here. At an 8-inch shelf would be at 4 inches. These are about around 8 inches center load, right? But this is 50 pounds. I have more weights that I can put on, but um, I also kind of want to get to the rest of the presentation. Um, we'll put on two more. You can see that's 100 pounds there and really isn't moving at all, right? Um, so yeah, took two off. And yeah, and then so you can see it's simple, um, quick, easy to use, and provides, a lot of rigidity and a lot of strength because of those weight distribution efficiencies. And um, yeah, so moving on to versatility. Again, as I was saying, you can kind of do a lot of different things here with the bracket systems that you wouldn't have been able to do with any other bracket systems. Like for example, do a drawer shelf or a shoe rack, those prongs would get in the way. You wouldn't be able to do that, diagonal um, angle there because the prongs would go out too far. But with our bracket, it's really easy to do. Again, drawer shelves, right? Something like a plexiglass shelf. Which again demonstrates how, you can really even just use plexiglass as the backing as long as you're using the appropriate hardware there. You can do something like a dog bowl shelf. Again, the prongs would get in the way otherwise, right? For something like that. Or, um, yeah. So, and again, corner shelves we talked about a little bit as well, how, you kind of do have that adjustability mechanic. So you can butt up your shelves. You can do something more complicated like the mitering here that the customer on the right side did, or sorry, the left side did. Um, but still, they kind of use that adjustability mechanic to butt those miters up against each other at the corner there. Um, And yeah, so just I wanted to mention a little bit about the resources that we have access to as well, or that you guys have access to, which is a vast knowledge base and information on our products, which you can go to hover.helpjuice.com to see that. Again, there's like hundreds of documents here on different wall installs, and different hardware to use in different applications, and picking between whether you want to use the classic or the slim or maybe the steel bracket in different scenarios, um, and all that. We also have guides and bracket accessories for installation onto any wall type. So we sell most of that type of hardware, and whatever we don't sell, we still mention as well. And it doesn't necessarily need to come from us. Like we just provide sort of the baseline hardware um, of what you're going to need, and you can always go out and get that yourself, right? Again, because all the hardware is ordinary and standard, so you'll be easily find it, wherever really you go. We have video, image, and text galleries. Um, so, we do video content, text content, and then we also have our image galleries. So the combination of all three can really help understand the bracket systems a lot. We do kind of cater to our customers as well, making sure that any questions are updated on, our knowledge base or updated in some sort of installation guide or something like that. Standardized installation information. Again, we include all install guide with all of our products. It comes with it, and otherwise they're also on the website as well. And so I basically just wanted to show one article here, and this one is about loading above the recommended depth, right? And sort of how that affects how the center load kind of affects the load capacity overall. We're not going to go through it here really too much in depth, but again, you can kind of see sort of the work we do here in order to make sure that everyone really understands the bracket systems. And this is just kind of one example of many of sort of the things that we add here, right? And then on top of that, I just wanted to show our installation page on the website. Again, we've got video install here, and then our actual installation guides for the Classic and Slim as well, which you can download directly from there, and just some additional videos on certain different wall type installs. But a lot of information there, and it does kind of help to understand the bracket, and we always try and strive to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing and understands what they need for their projects and that, right? Then I wanted to go through again a little bit more of the standardized installations that we offer, and this is specifically our technical specification sheets for architects. These were last updated in May. And basically, this came when we really started Acelab, and we noticed that architects would like something to specify and have something that they can add to their libraries. So we went ahead and sort of made these technical specification sheets that go over product overviews, tech specs, install instructions, load capacities, additional guidelines, intended applications, additional information, tips and tricks. And all this, it's basically a longer form installation guide, which gives you a little bit extra information. And it's been seemingly quite or very useful for, some of the architects that have specified our products or have added to their firm libraries. It seems to be quite useful for them. And we're always trying to update these as well. So, if there's any additional information you guys would want to see in those, um, we're definitely all ears and happy to review that, right, and add those. And I did just want to show maybe one of these. So this is the Slim. Again, it's about 7 pages long, and it just goes over the product overviews, the features of the bracket, gives you the specific dimensions, kind of.
I don't think we can see that part of your screen. We can just see the.
Oh, really? Okay. One second. There we go. Can you see it now?
It's pulling up still.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go. Yeah. So, yeah, as I was saying, this is the one for the Slim. It looks very similar for the Classic one, but obviously the information's a little bit different. But the brackets do work very similar. So, a lot of the information is going to be the same with different numbers or, different load capacities, obviously different dimensions and stuff like that, right? But anyways, we kind of go over, an overview of the product and give specific dimensions on it, the load capacity ratings, and provide the install instructions again here. And just additional guidelines on where you want to put the bracket in the back of your shelf, depending on, the thickness of your shelf or what bracket you want to use, depending on, the depth of your shelf, you know, um, shelf backing requirements, maximum shelf depth, um, and just basically all the info that you or an installer would need in order to use and specify the product here. Um, and yeah, we have the same for Classic and Slim. And if you guys want these, feel free, to reach out to me or through Acelab, and we'll be able to provide these for you. Right now, we don't have these online. We just send them out on request, really.
All right.
Uh, And yeah, I mean, just here's some customer reviews, which, we won't spend long going over, but, we are very positively rated, and, do try our best to make sure that everyone's happy using our product, and the people that aren't, we try and figure out why, and learn from that, and adjust, and make changes where we can. We do kind of take feedback into account, and any of the lower star reviews, we do see those, and try and make changes if changes are necessary. Um, and again, we've got very similar but much less reviews because it's a newer product as well. Um, and yeah, sale options and pricing. Again, we won't spend too long on this, but basically, 2 foot is $49.99 and 8 foot is $169.99 at retail. But we do provide discounts, especially for volume orders. If there's any larger orders, we do provide volume discounts on that. We have our 10% pro pricing, but definitely go up quite a bit from there for larger volumes, and do sell to a lot of distributors as well at much larger quantities, and have the capabilities to do anywhere from a small project to a really large project. And lead times really are not too different. It's usually within if it's a really big order, like a crate order or something, within 4 weeks, and if it's a smaller order, up to 50 or 60 brackets, let's say, or as low as one to two, that'll only be usually within a week or two, that you'll get the product, including that shipping time. It is free shipping as well. I don't know if I mentioned that, but yeah. And that's pretty much it for what I wanted to talk about today. So I guess we're on to questions now.
Awesome. Yeah, we do have a couple questions coming in. So, first, I have somebody asking for a copy of the presentation. Alex, would you mind sharing that with anybody who's interested after today?
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely provide that. Yeah, if you whoever asked that question, if you reach out through Acelab, or my email is right here, alex@hoversolutions.com. If you email me there, just like, hi, like looking for the presentation, I'll be happy to send that over for sure. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. We'll share the questions with you, Alex, and the emails of who asked them, so that way you can also just send it through there too.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's perfect. Next question we have, is there any back of shelf flush mounting method that would not require routing for the female bracket, realizing that brackets would show in final installation for rough garage shelves?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, if you didn't want to route out and you just wanted to use the bracket, um, kind of what we call it is an exposed bracket. And we actually do have a picture of that right here, exposed or semi-exposed, sort of the top right picture there. So you can see there's a couple different methods, right? And really what you can do as the simplest form, right, is take the classic bracket, take 2 by 8 or whatever, which is an inch and a half by 8 inches, let's say, or 7.5. And you can literally just take that female bracket and screw it directly into the or onto that 2 by 8, and hang that up, right? You'll see the bracket on the top and the bottom, but it'll be at the same sort of dimensions as your shelf, right? The bracket's an inch and a half. The wood is an inch and a half because it's 2 by 8 or 2 by 10 or whatever you want to use, right? And basically you can just use that bracket exposed. We even have little um, uh, caps basically for the ends of the shelf. So you can see that bottom picture there it says end cap left, end cap right. So you can add little end caps. We have different colors basically if you want to just, not have that on the sides, not be able to see through the bracket on the sides. Or you can do something like that top view, semi-exposed bracket where you're basically just cutting out where the bracket would go, and then just putting that in there, and again just screwing it in, right? So you'll be able to see the bracket on the top and the bottom but not on the sides. So that's definitely possible. You can do that with the classic, you can do that with the slim. I actually even I think have one right here where we even did this, right, where we just took the slim bracket and screwed it directly onto the end of this piece. And you can hang it up, and the bracket is exposed and you can see it. But the other thing you can do, right, is if you don't want to see it, but you don't want to router it, you can even just at the end finish this with a really thin veneer, and then just cover the whole thing in a very thin veneer, glue it down, and then you've basically got, a shelf without needing to router um, at all. And that way, it would basically be an exposed bracket. But again, there's other options too without needing to router, right? Like if you get a three corner folded MDF, you just fold it around and then you've got that space. Or like the shelf we put up, for example, that one didn't require routering because essentially they just put the laminate around it and then built the box on the inside with, a strip. So again, no routering required. But of course, if it's a full wood shelf, then you kind of have to router unless, you're doing that exposed bracket like that. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think that answered the question. Thank you, Alex. And that is our last question for now. So did you want to move on? We still have 10 minutes left. I don't know if you wanted to go over any other items or wrap us up with any final notes or anything like that.
Um, yeah, what could we spend a little more time reviewing here?
It looks like we actually have one question that just came in. The same person who asked the last question, they're asking, do you have any pictures of wall hanging brackets?
Um, of wall hanging brackets. I'm not fully sure I understand the question.
Mm, Patrick, would you mind clarifying exactly what you're looking for? Wall cabinet hanging brackets. Is that
Oh, the kitchen cabinet bracket that we're coming out with, maybe. I actually don't have any pictures here, or any examples actually. But if you reach out to us, I can definitely get you the CAD drawings for that, or we have samples of it already as well. Um, I can, definitely provide some pictures of it, of course, but yeah, we've got a lot of information on those that I can definitely send over to you if you reach out. And if you're just talking about maybe the male side bracket, I can show these off here. This is how our actual brackets look. This is the slimline bracket. Again, they're all two-piece components, right? The slim has holes both in the shelf side bracket and in the wall side bracket to make it even easier to use this and for anyone to, put this on the wall and put this in your shelf. Um, and then this is the classic here. Has holes on the shelf side piece because the backing is going to be, um, present anyways. So we were able to do holes there, but we actually left the male side bracket or the wall side bracket on this one without holes so that you can basically drill the holes where they're needed. For if you're lining them up with your studs or if you specifically want to avoid like some electrical in the back of your wall, but you're using drywall anchors, you just move it over a little bit. Um, and we do include a 3/16 inch drill bit to make these holes, but ultimately, we didn't want a bunch of holes in this one because it is a little bit thinner as well. So we just leave that up to, wherever you want to put it. So you'll always be lined up for your project basically. And again, because it is aluminum uniform, you're cutting it to size, right? So we kind of wanted to have those holes interfere as little as possible on that side there.
nice? Yeah, I think that answers our question. And Patrick, yeah, we can connect you with Alex after this webinar so you can share any additional details on those cabinet wall brackets. Yeah, awesome. I think there's no other open questions right now. So any final notes you'd like to wrap us up with, Alex?
Um, yeah, just that, I mean, we we really designed these brackets to be better than other systems out there. And spent a lot of time, looking at sort of the different forces applied and looking at sort of how to make these as strong and as safe as possible. And our pricing is slightly premium for sure over the competition, but we also have, we're trying to provide the strongest, safest, most secure, most versatile bracket systems that are out there. Um, and I do think that, we're achieving that. And yeah, I mean, try them out for yourself. If there's any interest or reach out and, we'd be happy to work with you on any reservations you have or anything. But yeah, I think maybe that.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Alex. I think the presentation was great, very thorough. And folks, if you filled out the poll that we launched a few minutes ago, well, keep an eye on your inbox here. Over the next couple days, we'll be connecting you directly with Alex via an Acelab conversation. So you'll get an email notification when that conversation is open, and you can respond directly to that email notification or just log into your ASLab account and you'll be able to communicate there in that conversation. So keep an eye out for that. And otherwise, we really appreciate all of you joining today. And thank you again, Alex. We hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.